Hello everyone, and welcome back. My name is Sind, and this is going to be the follow-up guide for Thea, Ring of Blades. If you haven't seen the first part, I highly recommend it, as I go over the basics on how I built the character and what was the setup that I used to farm tier 7 easily. I'll leave that video in the comments and in the cards in the top right corner. For this video, I'm going to go over my current setup, as I just managed to kill Traveler 8 yesterday. I'm now quite happy with the current state of the character. I want to share it with all of you that have been following along. So let us start with the gearing section. So starting with our gear. Let's go over the uniques first. I am once again using a light hunter belt. It's just a lot of ES, a lot of life being converted to ES, and gives us the freedom to not have to use Force Start, which allows us to use different defensive layers on top of that. I am using Ralph's Footsteps as well. It's not mandatory, but it gives us a lot of increased fervor effect, and it comes with a nice little bit of movement speed, ES as well, and a lot of resistance. So a nice pair of boots to get. Important to mention, along with Ralph's Footsteps, you need a pair of gloves that has the tier 1 mod for Have Fervor. Otherwise, the boots are basically doing nothing for you. So keep that in mind. Speaking of gloves, here we have a little bit of lightning resistance. We have tier 0 conversion, which was very lucky. I still don't have any on my slates, unfortunately, but this allows us to convert a great majority of our physical damage. Actually, I think I have 20% on my slates, so I'm converting 100% of my damage to an element. It's just not all of the same. And then the rest of the prefixes are a waste of time, but the suffixes are pretty decent. And I have dream crafted this to give me a big amount of flat damage to spells. Our helmet here is probably our weakest piece. It's just ES on the prefixes and a bit of area damage, erosion resistance, and then very low crafts of skill radius and crit strike rating. This is the one that I'm working to fix currently, but it still does the work. It's fine as it is for clearing most of the game. On our chest piece, we got double energy shield mod on the prefixes. Mana is a dead stat, unfortunately. And then we have skill radius, a low resistance, and own one additional stack of focus blessings. On our neck piece, I have swapped out of Chain of Resistance, although I used it until the end. I cleared Traveler 8 with it. I just swapped to this a couple of hours ago. This is tier 1 energy shield with a crafted tier 1 physical skill level, which is quite nice for us. The trauma damage is pointless. And then on the suffixes, I dream crafted this mod on, which was quite nice. And then we got resistance and crit strike damage. For our ring, here we have a Thunderfire ring with +1 max focus blessings. I would much rather have that to be tenacity blessings, because tenacity blessings basically function as both tenacity and focus. This is not giving us any tenacity blessings, therefore is less valuable for us. Nevertheless, it's a good increase to our damage. And then we have max energy shield and spell damage. And on the suffixes, we have all the resistance in the planet. On our second ring, we have a lot of flat on our prefixes, as well as crafting that +2 tenacity blessings. That was a very lucky craft. And on the suffixes, once again, just resistances. And this is an abyssal ring, so we got erosion damage, which does not much for us. For our staff, as you can see, it's a very good piece. The base is not important, or this base does nothing for us. You can get a better base, but I managed to drop this with plus spell skill level as well as max channel stacks, so I crafted it for a little bit and I got 6 useful mods, in fact 6 very good mods for our staff. So this is a very nice piece. This mod in particular is great because the negative does nothing and the additional spell damage is a lot of damage. So we have +1 spell skill levels, +1 max channel charge, and this mod is a big deal. This is essentially a +4 maximum focus blessing. You can get this as tier 0 as well, and would be even higher. It would be +6 instead. I believe it goes up to 3. I don't think it goes up to 4. Nevertheless, it's a big increase to your damage. This was the thing that made me go from about 1.5 billion to 5 billion, if I remember correctly. So massive increase. If you're gonna start crafting and you don't know what to start with your staff, get this mod. It's gonna be a big deal. As for our stats, they are, as you can see, like this. And we have about, I think, yeah, I was gonna say 25. We have about a 22% crit strike chance without any fervor, of course. For our passive trees, as you can see, we're still using the same tree, Goddess of Knowledge, Magister and Elementalist. The big nodes are still exactly the same. There has been some minor adjustments to the nodes along the trees that I'm going to show you now. Going over our skills here, as you can see, we swapped LMP for critical strike damage. The LMP increased projectile count no longer was necessary to make our blades overlap in the middle, as I've gotten enough increased AoE from other sources. Therefore, we could slot in critical strike damage instead. Another thing that you can do here, if you have a tier 0 candle that has main skill is supported by critical strike damage, you can then swap this for another damage support and essentially have a 6 support main skill, which would be very, very powerful for damage. After that, we have Fixate linked to Rhythm and Mania. We then have Arcane Circle with Mania and Rhythm as well. Mana Boil with Well Fought Battle, Mania and Mass Effect. And Blurry Steps linked to Ceaselessness, Extended Duration and Mass Effect as well. For our auras on mana, here we have Energy Fortress, Precise Projectiles, Acuteness Imbue, and Precise Elemental Amplification. On our life, we have a trigger while channeling Delayed Pain. If you don't have the Light Center Belt, I would recommend instead use for Start, linked to Defensive Layers. After that, we have Elemental Resistance, which is allowing us to cap our resistances without putting a lot of pressure on our suffixes on our gear. And finally, we have an innate curse setup for Elemental Destruction and Magic Source as well for mana regen. On our candles, as you can see, this one has one channel stack, which is quite nice, and aura effect. And the second one is the same as we've seen before, I believe, movement speed and a bit of elemental resistance. If you are looking for upgrades, something that is going to be very, very good here would be precise projectiles, or precise projectiles, I should say, and precise energy fortress would be very good. On our trait, as you can see, we're still using everything the same along the levels except on the last tier. We are instead using predicted justice here. I've gotten a lot of increases to tenacity blessings throughout my gear, as we saw before. Therefore, this gains a lot more value than the other option ever had. For our relic, we are using an increase to focused blessings when we consume 30 stacks of any blessings, as well as an increase to the main skill damage for each blessing consumed by Divine Punishment that is going to further increase the snapshotting power of this character. On our memories, we have here increased damage per stack consumed by our Divine Punishment, and this is across all three of them. And then we have movement speed. This one actually doesn't have the stacking mechanic, but instead we have higher chance to get focus blessings for just reliability of consuming as many as we can, and a bit of energy shield. And the final one as the stacking mechanic once again, and an increased chance to generate a tenacity or agility blessing whenever we get a focus one. This is here just for consistency, but you could easily replace this for another damage increase memory. Once again, if you have the memory that gives us this point down here, you should 100% consider socketing it in, as it's going to be a massive amount of damage increase. I've been trying to farm it really hard. I've gotten over 20 times the wrong memory, unfortunately, so I haven't been able to get it yet. But if you can do, or if you're in trade and you can buy it, do so. Big damage increase. On our Statue of the New Gods, as you can see, we're using a Pedigree of the Gods with 3 birds with 1 stone. This allowed me to drop LMP on our main link, allowing me to socket and crit damage. This is only here for this, doesn't have any other good mods. As you can see, there's a bit of convert, and that's about it. On this one, we have further effect, additional damage by enemies in proximity. I believe we're always in proximity unless you are trying to hit the enemies just with the edge of the outside of the ring, which you shouldn't be. You should be on top of your enemy whenever you want to deal damage. And then additional damage against enemies at the center of the area for every point of chaos, and a bit of cooldown recovery speed. Attacking cast speed does nothing for us. On this one, this is one from the last video as well, is crit, additional max damage, skill radius and spell crit strike damage per stack of focus blessings. As we talked, the more focus blessings we have, the better, and this is amazing now. This is giving us a ton of spell crit damage right now. On here, we have a God of Might Divinity Slate with +1 to additional owned tenacity blessings, which is not very good because it doesn't actually affect our focus. It just gives us an additional tenacity blessing, but then it has skill radius per tenacity blessing, which is very nice. We then have 10% resistance and convert to fire. So on the slides we have about 50% converted. We only need another 50 on our gear. Optimally you would have 100%, but this is still fine. And then we have weakens enemies when attacked with an area of effect skill, which we always do, so very nice. Finally, I just recently got this. None of the showcase was done with this, but this was something that I wanted to try and get because I didn't know what was gonna come from it. I got one of the cards from the Nether Realm that says an enemy is gonna drop 2 legendary pieces of the Statue of the New Gods, and this is one of the ones I got. It's amazing. It's everything we want for our build. Only 1 additional stack of Focus Blessing is very good. Chance to get Focus Blessing whenever we frostbite an enemy. And then 3% 3% fervor rating on critical strike. Very, very good. As for our damage, as you saw in the thumbnail, we have quite a lot of damage, over 10 billion damage. If we come here to the dummy, you need to set up your snapshotting properly, don't forget that. But once you do, you can see the stacks at the top. Once you do, it should be way over 10 billion damage and more than enough damage to do most of the content in the game, for sure. There it is. Very nice. So, and it fluctuates quite a bit on the top end and the lower end, but as you can see it goes way over 10 billion at times. It's very good. We're doing very solid damage. And yeah guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the build, don't forget to leave a like and a comment, subscribe to the channel to let us build, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye bye.